had been a few months since they declared my husband Declan Hayes dead, and now his mother Marla Hayes was dragging me to the hospital. She booked me an appointment for an abortion, her eyes all red as she played the concerned parent. "Sage, he's gone. You still have your whole life ahead of you. Get rid of the baby now, and I'll find you a decent man to marry." I clutched the consent form in my hand and said nothing. Then, out of nowhere, a tiny, squeaky voice exploded inside my head. "Mom, don't do it. Dad's not even dead." I felt like I'd been struck by lightning. The form slipped from my fingers and fluttered to the floor. Dad's at Serenity Hills rehab, and some woman's messing with his head, trying to make him her husband. Last time you believed Grandma's crap and didn't go get him, so I never even got a chance to be born. And when Dad finally figured it out, he practically went crazy. I didn't think twice. Pregnant belly and all, I stormed straight to Serenity Hills. When a nurse tried to stop me outside the training room, a woman was inside holding my husband's hand, her voice dripping with fake warmth. "Relax, Captain Hayes. The only way to start fresh is to let go of what's behind you." I drew back my foot and kicked the closed door wide open. Bam! I kicked that door like my life depended on it, charging in with my belly leading the way. "Declan Hayes, take your hand off her now." The crash scared them so bad they sprang apart, eyes wide. I was shaking, my eyes bloodshot as I stared at the man in front of me, thin, gaunt, drowning in a hospital gown. My heart ached so much I could barely stand it. But then I remembered how Sloane Whitmore had been holding his hand, and all that hurt turned into blazing rage. I stepped closer, one slow step at a time, my voice trembling but sharp as a blade. "I spent 5 months looking for you. I've cried until I had nothing left, fought off everyone for you. You're hiding out here, playing house with some other woman." The second Declan saw me, he froze like he'd been hit by a truck. He yanked his hand back in a panic, knocking over a cup of water that shattered on the floor. His eyes locked onto mine, and for a split second I saw pure, raw joy, like he'd found something he'd lost forever. Then his gaze dropped to my huge, round belly. He braced himself on the coffee table and staggered to his feet, veins bulging on his forehead. With every ounce of strength he had, he forced broken, strangled sounds from his ruined throat. "Whose baby is that?" Those words drove a knife straight through my heart. I was carrying his child, and the first thing he asked when we reunited was, "Whose kid is that?" Arg, I'm so mad. Daddy's brain got scrambled by that evil woman. Inside my head, my baby's squeaky roar came through again. "Don't cry, Mom. It's not Dad's fault. That Sloane Whitmore did all this. Dad thinks he's been gone for almost 2 years. Sloane told him you took a ton of money from the company and got remarried. He thinks that baby you're carrying belongs to someone else." The crushing hurt inside me turned into icy rage, and I shot a death glare at Sloane. She'd already recovered. She stepped forward, positioning herself in front of Declan like a human shield, all professional and composed. "Ma'am, you need to leave. Now, Captain Hayes has severe PTSD. He's extremely unstable. You barging in like this. That's a major trigger for him." Then she turned to grab Declan's arm, her voice dripping with honey. "Hayes, take a deep breath. Don't look at her. Your memories are still scrambled. None of this is real. Let me handle it." She looked like the lady of the house protecting her man, disgusting. "A trigger, not real." I let out a cold laugh, ignoring the dull ache in my lower belly as I stepped closer. "Dr. Whitmore, open your eyes. I'm his legal wife. We have a marriage certificate. This baby. It's Declan Hayes's flesh and blood." For a split second, panic flickered across Sloane's face, but she quickly masked it with a pitying sigh. "MS. Bennett, the rehab center has clear records. Captain Hayes's wife signed a waiver of search and rescue months ago, took the money and moved on. You're here to stir up trouble for cash. I'll have security throw you out." "She is lying." My baby's voice screamed in my head. "Mom, go get her." That blue folder on the desk behind her, it literally says she's his fiancé. How shameless. She used her uncle, the assistant director here, to bribe someone and change his marital status in the system. With that intel, I didn't hesitate. I slid past Sloane and grabbed the dark blue file off her desk. "Put that down. That's confidential patient information." Sloane's face went white, and she lunged for it. I spun around and slammed the file right across her face. Smack, papers flew everywhere, and the hard plastic corner left a bright red scratch on her delicate cheek. "I took money and remarried. I'm causing trouble." I pointed at the mess of documents on the floor, my voice echoing down the hallway. "Then explain this, Ms. Whitmore. Why are you listed as the emergency contact on my husband's rehab file? And why, under relationship, does it say fiancé?" The hallway went dead silent after I threw the file and laid into her. Sloane clutched her red, scratched cheek. Panic flickered in her eyes again, but she quickly clamped her jaw shut and put on a wounded, innocent act. MS. Bennett, Captain Hayes' memory is stuck right before the fire. He's desperate for a sense of security. I put fiancé because I'm using a technique called effective substitution desensitization therapy for his PTSD. Her eyes welled up as she raised her voice. And you signed that waiver. Now that you see Declan's alive, you're back to cash in. Security, get this crazy woman out of here. A couple of big guards grabbed my arms and started shoving me. Move it, no fighting, the chaos, I stumbled. The small of my back slammed into the doorframe. A sharp stab of pain shot through my belly. My face went white and sweat beaded on my forehead. Mom, are you okay? My baby's little voice cracked with panic, but the pain and the humiliation of being manhandled only fueled me. I heard my son's voice and found a new burst of fury. Touch me. I don't know where I found the strength, but I shook them off. I pointed at the scattered files on the floor, ignoring the pain. Effective substitution therapy, I laughed bitterly. Dr. Whitmore, if it's legit, why'd you hide his married status in the system? Why'd you get your uncle, the assistant director, to help you fake these records? Are you treating him or just feeding your own sick little fantasy? That's not. I was trying to protect him from painful memories. Sloane's face was ghost white. She stumbled backward, her words falling apart. The nurses and staff around us went from trusting her to staring in shock and disgust. What are you waiting for? Get her out! Sloane shrieked at the guards. One guard stepped forward hesitantly, but before he could touch me, a hand grabbed his arm. It was Declan. He didn't even have shoes on. Barefoot, he moved in front of me, his pale face twisted with fury, shielding me completely. He couldn't speak, but his eyes screamed a warning at anyone who tried to come near. Looking at his broad, thin back, my eyes burned and the weight on my chest started to lift. The rehab center director saw what was happening, shot Sloane a furious look, and waved the guards off. This is ridiculous. She's family, how could you throw her out? Zach, get Ms. Bennett set up in one of our VIP family suites right now. The temporary suite was small, 1 bedroom, 1 living room, but it was clean and quiet. On the walk from the main building, Declan stayed right behind me like a silent giant, his eyes locked on me like I'd vanish if he blinked. Once we were inside, the quiet felt heavy. Instead of sitting, he started circling the room. His face was blank, but his gaze was sharp, like he was clearing a hot zone. Soon, he found some old cardboard and scissors on the balcony. He crouched down and started cutting. I had no idea what he was doing until he took the rounded pieces of cardboard and carefully taped them over every sharp corner. The coffee table, the cabinets, layer by layer, like his life depended on it. He couldn't talk, so he just worked in this quiet, almost obsessive way, checking every spot where I might bump into something. Awa, Daddy's memory is all messed up, but his instinct to protect Mom is still perfect. My baby's voice was soft now, not so sharp. In the past life after I was gone, Dad did the same thing. He wrapped every corner of our house in the middle of the night, crying the whole time, "Mom, don't let his cold face fool you." He's even walking on tiptoes so he doesn't scare you. I watched Declan's broad back as he knelt on the floor, and for the first time all day, I felt my shoulders loosen just a little. When he finished the last corner, he stood up, walked to the table, and poured a glass of warm water. He brought it to me and held it out. His dark eyes stared into mine, his Adam's apple bobbing like he wanted to say something, but nothing came out. He frowned in frustration, a faint blush creeping up his ears, and just shoved the glass gently into my hands. I took it and sipped. He stood there at attention like a loyal guard, but peace never lasts long. The next morning, that brief calm was shattered by a knock on the door. It wasn't some medical review board. It was Carter Thompson, the head of security for the rescue group, with Sloane Whitmore right behind him. "MS. Bennett, sorry to disturb you," Thompson said, his face grave, a file in his hand. "You showing up like that yesterday sent Captain Hayes' heart rate and vitals through the roof. And this morning we got a call from his mother. She sent a video and a signed statement." Stomach dropped. I knew something bad was coming. Sloane pushed up her glasses and spoke in her official voice. "The video, she says you took 80 grand in survivor's benefits within the first month after Captain Hayes went missing. That you were planning to marry old man Tucker next door. And that the baby you're carrying, well, who knows who the father really is." "That's a lie." I was shaking with rage. "I never took any money. And I never agreed to marry anyone. The company will investigate the facts," Thompson said with a sigh. But for now, to stabilize his condition, Captain Hayes needs to go to the intervention unit for a routine evaluation. Declan couldn't follow the whole argument, but he sensed the threat. He stepped in front of me, staring daggers at Sloane. "Declan," Thompson said, gripping his shoulder. "Stand down, it's just an evaluation." The word "stand down" hit Declan like a hot iron. His whole body went stiff. He turned to look at me, his eyes full of worry. Then they led him away. I couldn't just sit there. I followed them to the memory rehab unit. Through the glass window on the evaluation room door, I saw something that made my blood boil. There were no high-tech machines inside. Sloane just put a tablet in front of Declan, playing a recording of Marla's shrill, venomous voice on loop. "Declan, don't let that slut fool you. She took your death benefit and got an abortion. Now she's showing up pregnant with God knows whose bastard, trying to trap you now that you're alive." Declan stared at the screen. His already jumbled memories collapsed into chaos. He clutched his head, sweat pouring down his face. "Hayes, breathe," Sloane cooed like a snake. "That's your mother, she wouldn't lie to you. The woman you see in front of you isn't your wife anymore, forget her. Don't let her trigger you." Bam, I couldn't take it. I kicked the door open. "Sloane, are you insane? You call this treatment?" Feeding him twisted, one-sided garbage like this? I stormed in, grabbed the tablet off the table, and smashed it on the floor. The screen shattered. "MS, Bennett, this is insane." Sloane jumped up and planted herself in front of Declan like some kind of martyr. "This is legitimate evidence from his own family. For Declan's safety, I already brought in a private security team behind Mr. Thompson's back. You can't prove that baby is his. I suggest you sign this no-contact agreement and get out of this facility right now." The medical staff and guards outside had gathered, staring at me with suspicion and whispers. After all, a mother. Personal testimony carried weight. I ignored all of them. I just stared at Declan, still sitting in the chair. When he saw me, the agony in his eyes deepened. His mother's lies, Sloane's manipulation, and the real me standing there, all of it ripped at his nerves. He stumbled off the chair, sweating, desperate to reach for me. But the more he tried, the less he could speak. He forced out only a few broken syllables. "No, not say. You hear that?" Sloane raised her voice, triumphant. "Even his subconscious is telling you you're not his wife, telling you don't push him anymore." The murmuring in the hallway got louder. Under all those suspicious eyes, Declan's mangled, misconstrued words became the final blow against me. "Fine," I said with a bitter laugh, all my pain hardening into something cold. I grabbed the no-contact agreement off the table, crumpled it, and threw it in Sloane's face. But then, without warning, a vicious cramp ripped through my belly. My face went white. My legs gave out and I started falling toward the hard floor. Inside my head, my baby's terrified, desperate scream exploded. "Mom, you're bleeding. I don't feel good. It hurts. Mom, save me, stupid dad. If you don't do something now, me and Mom are really going to die." A bright streak of red seeped through my skirt and stained the floor. My consciousness started to fade. "Sage." That roar tore through every lie and every haze. It wasn't a broken whisper or a confused mumble. 1 second before I hit the ground, a pair of strong arms caught me and pulled me tight against a solid chest. I felt hot tears splashing on my face. A hoarse, clear voice was the last thing I heard before everything went dark. "Doctor, get a doctor. Save my wife." When I opened my eyes again, the air smelled like disinfectant. The ache in my belly was gone, replaced by the soft hum of a fetal monitor. "Wah, Mom, you're awake. You scared me to death. My baby's weak but lively little voice filled my head, thick with worry. "Don't worry, Mom. The doctor said the baby's fine and you're okay." But that dumb dad out there, he's so pathetic. He's been standing guard in the hallway like a statue for a whole day and night. His eyes are all red and creepy, and he won't leave no matter what anyone says. Hearing that the baby was safe, the tension inside me finally snapped. Tears slid silently down my cheeks. The door creaked open. Declan's tall frame shuffled in stiffly. He was wearing just a thin shirt, dark stubble shadowing his jaw. Those eyes, once sharp as an eagle from a rescue helicopter, were now bloodshot and full of fear. When he saw I was awake, he froze. His hands twisted the hem of his shirt. He wanted to come closer but was scared of upsetting me, so he just stood at the foot of the bed like a guilty kid. Where's all that yelling from yesterday? I propped myself up on the pillow, my voice weak but my eyes cold. "Declan, I'll ask you once. 5 months. The group rescued you and brought you back. Why didn't you contact me?" Declan flinched, agony flooding his face. He opened his mouth, but the 2 screams he'd managed yesterday had shredded his barely healed vocal cords. Now, with his emotions raging, his PTSD slammed back down, and all that came out were broken, airless sounds. Desperate, He pulled out his work phone, his hands shaking as he pulled up a text thread and stumbled to the bedside, holding the screen out to me. It was the message he'd sent to his Marla from a new number after he woke up from his injuries. And there, in black and white, was Marla's cruel reply. "Son, don't go looking for Sage. She thought you were dead." She took the money from the group and said she wasn't going to be a widow. She already aborted the baby and is marrying old man Tucker next door. You're badly hurt. Don't ruin her new life, and right below it, a memo from Sloan. Captain Hayes, as your primary doctor, I'm recommending emotional containment therapy. She's moved on. You showing up would only weigh her down and scare her. Forgetting her is the only way you're going to heal. Reading those words, ice flooded my veins. Nice. Start over. Don't burden her. Laughed through the tears streaming down my face, my teeth clenched as I glared at him. The money, I never even saw the death certificate the group sent out. Marla threw me out a month after you disappeared. She was drowning in gambling debt and tried to sell me to old man Tucker. I've been hiding out in some leaky basement apartment, begging for cash just to afford my prenatal appointments, all to protect your baby. Declan, I thought you were dead. I nearly died myself keeping your child safe. And you believed that evil woman and that scheming shrink instead of coming to see for yourself. Declan looked like he'd been struck by lightning. He stared at my pale, gaunt face and everything. The lies, the fragments, the truth exploded inside him. The betrayal of the woman who raised him, the brainwashing by his doctor, the crushing guilt over me, it broke the steel man completely. Sore, his knees buckled. He half knelt by my bed, clutching his hair, tears splashing on the floor. He fought to force out a full sentence, but the aphasia strangled his throat, leaving only anguished, hopeless groans. Watching him tear himself apart with guilt, I turned my face away and closed my eyes. Get out! I don't want to see you right now. Declan's hand hung in the air. Finally. He didn't push. He just stumbled back, his eyes red, and left the room. That night I couldn't sleep. My phone buzzed a few times on the nightstand. I picked it up. Texts from Declan. The screen flickered with heartbreaking little notifications. Declan is typing Declan, unsent a message Declan, unsent a voice message Declan, unsent a message half. The screen was filled with messages he'd typed and then erased. I could picture him out in the hallway, that once fearless rescue commander, now clumsily tapping at his phone, not knowing how to beg his wife for forgiveness. Then the screen went still. One lonely line remained, so humble it hurt. Sage, please don't leave me. I stared at those words for a long time. Then I locked the screen, said nothing, and tucked the phone under my pillow. The next morning, a nurse came in to check on me. She glanced at the door and said softly, "Your husband is something else." He sat on that bench out there all night. Mr. Thompson came to send him home, but he wouldn't budge. She paused, then asked carefully, "Do you want me to request a move to a VIP room upstairs? Better privacy, keycard access. He wouldn't be able to get in and bother you." I leaned back on my pillow, my gaze drifting to the half-open door. I could just see the edge of a gray sleeve, damp with morning dew. After a moment, I looked away. I touched my round belly, my voice calm but with a hint of something softer. "If I change rooms, that idiot won't be able to find me." Second, I said no. The door pushed open a little more. That stubborn ox the nurse was talking about, the one who'd sat on that bench all night, was now standing in the doorway, holding a stainless steel thermos. His huge frame blocked the whole entrance like a wall. The nurse took the hint, set down her tray, and slipped out, closing the door behind her. It was just the two of us. Declan didn't come near me right away. He looked down at his gray jacket, spotted with a few drops of dew. With a frown, he stripped it off and tossed it onto the far sofa. Then he went into the bathroom, washed his hands with soap 3 times, even dried between each finger with paper towels, and only then, warm and clean, did he dare approach my bed. He put the thermos on the nightstand and unscrewed the lid. Inside was thick, creamy oatmeal with dried cranberries and honey steam still rising off it. Then he pulled a chair over, sat exactly 2 feet away, and just watched me with those bloodshot dark eyes. Outside, muffled arguing broke out. "Mr. Thompson, Declan's behavior is textbook traumatic transference. He's refusing my treatment. This is a disaster for his memory recovery." Sloane's voice was sharp, frustrated. "And Miss Bennett's identity is still up in the air. What if she sets him off again?" I dropped my gaze, the tiny bit of warmth I'd felt cooling instantly. Declan noticed the shift in my mood. His face, so careful, almost shy when he looked at me, turned to ice the moment he glanced toward the door. He stood up, strode over, and yanked it open. Outside, Sloane was arguing with Thompson, clutching a stack of so-called psych evaluations. When she saw Declan, her eyes lit up, and she switched to her warm, concerned voice. "Captain Hayes, you haven't rested all night. Come back to the rehab center for A." She didn't finish. Declan snatched the stack from her hands and, with a loud RIP, tore them to shreds in front of everyone in the hallway. Paper scraps fluttered down like snow all over Sloane. "Hayes, what?" Sloane's face went white with disbelief. Declan didn't even look at her. He pulled out his work phone, typed furiously, and held the screen up for Thompson to see. On it, one line of vicious, unyielding text. "Effective immediately, Sloane Whitmore is relieved of all duties related to my psychological care. Any unauthorized personnel who try to get near my wife's room will be treated as a hostile threat to a Level 1 protectee. Maximum protective force protocol is in effect. Now get lost. Declan was a key operator in a global rescue organization." The second he switched into combat mode, the raw, brutal force rolling off him was more than Sloane could handle. Thompson read the screen, looked at the murder in Declan's eyes, and immediately grasped the situation. He grabbed Sloane by the arm before she could argue further. "Dr. Whitmore, you need to leave. Now, this area is under security team control." Hallway finally went quiet. Declan shut the door. When he turned back, all the violence in his eyes had been tucked away. He crept back to the chair like a big dog afraid of cracking thin ice. He saw I wasn't eating the oatmeal, so he picked up the bowl, scooped up a spoonful, blew on it carefully, and then, hesitant, clumsy, held it to my lips. I watched his hands shake. Those hands that had gripped rescue tools and rappelling ropes now trembled with fear of doing something wrong. I couldn't help it. I turned my head away. "Declan, you don't have to do this." I looked at him, my voice flat as still water. "Look, now that the whole mess is cleared up, let's just handle the paperwork after I get out. You go back to your rescue group. I'll raise the baby myself. Let's just pretend we ended things in that fire 5 months ago." Clink. The spoon fell back into the bowl, splashing warm oatmeal. Declan stared at me, his eyes turning red instantly. He shook his head hard, desperate to speak, but only managed, "Ah, no," broken sounds. Frantic, he grabbed the tablet from the table, his fingers white-knuckled. He typed and deleted, and finally held it up with 4 crooked, huge words. "Death won't part USI." Looked at his pathetic, desperate face and turned away. For the next 3 days, Declan set up camp in my room. He didn't try to talk me into forgiving him. Instead, he took over my life with the hardcore tactics of a rescue operator. Day 1, he measured every inch of the room with a tape measure and an infrared rangefinder. He replaced the hospital's non-slip mats with military-grade fireproof flooring. He even swapped out the bed's casters for heavy-duty locking wheels so it wouldn't budge an inch. Day 2, he drew an incredibly detailed emergency evacuation and medical access map on the whiteboard in the room. It marked the shortest routes from my bed to the OB operating room, the blood bank, even the rooftop helipad, and the exact seconds each route would take. Day 3, he brought a thick stack of documents and called in my primary doctor and the head nurse. I was lying in bed reading when he laid the papers out. The top one was the family privilege and emergency authorization from the rescue group. He took a pen and on every single line, sole emergency contact, primary medical decision maker, exclusive beneficiary of survivors' benefits and assets. He wrote 2 words in heavy, deliberate strokes, Sage Hayes. And on the rehab file that Sloane had tampered with, he used a thick marker to scribble out her name completely. Next to it, he wrote in bold, "Wife, Sage Hayes." Whoa, my baby's voice popped up again, sounding impressed. "Daddy just handed you his whole life, Mom." Look, he pressed so hard he almost tore the paper. I looked at the authorization form he'd shoved into my hands, and something hit me hard in the chest, soft and aching. "What's all this for?" My eyes burned, but I held back the tears and pointed at the crazy escape map on the whiteboard. "Declan, I'm carrying your baby, not a live C4. You don't have to treat me like a bomb disposal." Declan looked at me, his dark eyes dead serious. He picked up the tablet, lowered his head, and carefully typed with one finger. A few seconds later, he turned the screen toward me. It read, "To me, you're 100 times more dangerous than any bomb. Losing you would be worse than dying myself." That sentence hit my armor like a battering ram. The tears fell before I could stop them. Declan panicked. He dropped the tablet, grabbed tissues, and tried to wipe my face, but he was too scared to touch me. He just stood there, sweating, making helpless sounds in his throat. "Mom, can you forgive him just a little?" My baby's voice, usually so bouncy, suddenly went soft and sad. "In the past life, after you and I died, they found Dad. But when he found out that Grandma and that woman lied, that you went through all that pain alone, he lost his mind. I went rigid, forgetting to even wipe my tears. He locked himself in that leaky basement we had. He didn't sleep in the bed. He just curled up on the cold floor every day, holding one of your old shirts. And then when he went back to work, there was this huge earthquake. He pushed a pregnant lady out of the rubble and got crushed by a concrete slab, Mom. Right before he died, he smiled. The only time. He said he could finally go apologize to you." My baby's voice was thick with tears, echoing in my head. I lifted my head, looking through blurry eyes at this man who was frantic because I was crying. Who had nothing in his eyes but me, who would cut himself open for me if I asked. His clothes were wrinkled from taking care of me. His jaw was rough with stubble. He looked so pathetic. I took a deep breath, my eyes still red, and slowly reached out. I grabbed the hem of his shirt. Declan's whole body jerked. He looked down at me in disbelief. "Declan," I said, my voice thick and nasal. "I want some of that oatmeal you made." That moment I saw it clearly. This Iron Man who never flinched at blood or sweat. His tears finally broke free. He nodded hard like a forgiven believer and went to get the thermos from the nightstand. Then thump. A small notebook fell out of his pocket right next to my hand. I picked it up and opened it. And froze. It was an old, worn notebook filled front to back with handwriting, page after page. Names: Everett Hayes, Grant Hayes, Felix Hayes, Miles Hayes. Some were crossed out, some circled. Next to each, he'd used rescue group tactical symbols to mark risk, resistance level, and lucky meaning. PFFT. My baby's sadness vanished, replaced by giggles and teasing. Everett Grant. He actually wrote those down. I don't like these names. I get destroyed in kindergarten with a name like that. "Mom, please do something." I looked at the notebook, full of clumsy, love-filled names. Then I looked at Declan, holding the thermos, barely breathing, so tense. I wiped my tears and couldn't help it. I laughed. Softly. The day I was discharged, the sun was beautiful. Declan went to handle my checkout and bring the car around, telling me to wait for him on a bench in the hospital lobby. But the second he walked off, a beat-up van screeched to a halt at the entrance. The side door slid open, and a few thugs in cheap clothes jumped out. Before I could scream, they grabbed my arms and started dragging me toward the van. "Go of me." "What are you doing?" I struggled, my hands clamped over my belly. "Shut up and move." A familiar, vicious voice snapped. Marla, who'd been missing for 5 months, poked her head out. Her eyes were sunken, her face a mask of gambling addiction. She pointed at me and yelled at the men, "Hurry up! Don't let anyone see! We're getting this done today." Beside her sat a guy in loud clothes, chewing his fingers and drooling. Bobby Boo Klein. They shoved me into the van, slammed the door, and tore off. Half an hour later, we stopped in front of the county clerk's office. Marla and the 2 thugs dug their fingers into my arms and dragged me toward the building. "Mom, fight! Don't let them take you inside." My baby's baby voice became a terrified shriek, loud in my skull. "In the past life, this is where that mean old lady and her goons pushed you. You wouldn't marry that idiot, so they shoved you down the stairs. You started bleeding really bad. I didn't make it. Mom, please protect your belly." Past and present collided. A chill shot from my feet to my scalp. I stared at the high concrete steps. My palms were slick with sweat. Marla was so deep in debt, over 100 grand, that she was willing to kill a pregnant woman right here. "Marla, are you insane? Declan's alive. He's at Serenity Hills." I clawed at a nearby pillar and screamed at her. "You threatened me with that cripple." Marla spat, her face twisted as she grabbed my thigh. "He's been gone 5 months. Even if he's alive, he's useless. I already gambled away his benefits. You're marrying Bobby today for the money, or I swear I'll die right here." The 2 thugs exchanged a look, lost patience, and kicked at my hands to pry them off the pillar. I closed my eyes, curling my body around my belly. But the pain never came. Crunch. A sickening thud of flesh hitting flesh. The 2 men holding me flew through the air like broken kites, screaming, and crashed into the clerk's office glass doors, shattering them. A towering, dark figure landed in front of me, radiating pure killing fury. Declan. His jacket was gone. Just a thin shirt soaked with sweat from running. His black eyes were completely bloodshot, veins bulging on his forehead and neck like they might burst. For the first time, I saw the unshakable, emotionless rescue captain lose his mind in front of everyone. "Dita, Declan." Marla fell back onto the steps, her face gray as a ghost. You're not messed up." "How?" Declan ignored her. He turned and, with shaking hands that could barely make a fist, carefully pulled me to my feet. When he was sure I wasn't hurt and the baby was fine, he let a fraction of the violence in his eyes cool. He wrapped me completely behind his broad back and turned to face Marla. You, touch her, again. Son, I'm your mother. Marla saw she was losing and slapped her thigh, putting on a show right there on the steps, wailing for the crowd. This ungrateful boy. He comes back and tries to kill his own mother over some slut. Everyone, look. People gathering outside the clerk's office circled around, pointing and whispering. Marla, emboldened by the audience, pointed at my face and screamed. You think this bitch is innocent? Who knows whose bastard she's carrying? I married your dead father for his money and an easy life. You think I raised you 'cause I loved you? You were my cash cow. I sent you to that rescue group so you'd make big money for me, not so you'd lay a hand on me over some slut. In her frantic attempt to seize the moral high ground, she spewed every secret like a broken slot machine. The crowd went dead silent. Then gasps, she was Declan's real mother. She was a stepmother. His mother had died of illness when he was young. His father remarried, then died in an accident 2 years later. Marla had taken everything, living off Declan's pay and survivor benefits for years, gambling it all away. Every bit of pain, isolation, and memory loss Declan had suffered for 5 months. It was all her doing. Good, very good. I stepped out from behind Declan, wiping tears I didn't know I'd shed, and stared at Marla. Marla, every word you just said, the clerk's office cameras and every person here heard it. Declan's fists were so tight his nails cut into his palms. Blood dripped between his fingers onto the steps. He didn't say another word to Marla. With his uninjured left hand, he pulled out his work phone and dialed security and the police. His voice was still hoarse, but every word was clear and final. This is Declan Hayes, outside the county clerk's office. Attempted kidnapping of a pregnant woman, falsification of dependents' documents, and massive fraud. Send units now. The words kidnapping and units. Marla and the 2 thugs panicked and tried to run, but black SUVs had already surrounded the area. Dozens of rescue team members in uniform, their eyes cold, appeared like ghosts before the police even arrived. Hayes, they saluted in unison. Sirens grew closer. When the cuffs clicked onto Marla and the thugs' wrists, she finally understood fear. She struggled, crying and begging, Son, I raised you. You can't do this to me. God will punish you. Declan stood like a statue, his hard face showing nothing. He just covered my ears with his hands and pressed my head into his chest, blocking out the filth. Marla's public meltdown at the clerk's office became the hammer that finally shattered Sloan Whitmore's fortress. The police investigation moved fast. Later, when I gave my statement, the officer told me that faced with kidnapping charges, Marla's bravado collapsed. Not only did she confess to everything, stealing Declan's benefits, trying to sell me off, but she also gave up Sloan, detailing every payment and instruction. 2 days later, I sat with Declan in the main conference room of Global Rescue Operations HQ. The air was freezing. Mr. Thompson, let me explain. Captain Hayes's psychological defenses were totally shot, changing his file and keeping Sage Bennett away from him. That was an extreme form of emotional containment therapy. Sloan stood at the end of the long table, her perfect makeup now a mess. She was still hiding behind her psychological jargon. It was medically necessary. I was trying to save him. Slam, Thompson threw a thick stack of police reports and bank records in her face. Medically necessary. You call secretly transferring $50,000 to his stepmother for hush money medically necessary? Thompson was shaking with rage, pointing at the scattered evidence. You abused your authority to change internal records and list yourself as his fiancé. You misused hypnotic drugs to plant false memories that his wife cheated on him and aborted his baby. You weren't treating him. You were psychologically destroying one of our core operatives. I watched Sloan stare at the bank transfers on the floor. Her face went paper-white. Her legs gave out, and she collapsed into a chair, unable to say another word. I squeezed Declan's hand and stood up, looking down at the woman who almost destroyed us. Doctor Whitmore, you planned everything perfectly. But you never figured out that Marla isn't even Declan's real mother. She's just a greedy, evil stepmother. My voice was cold, each word a knife. You used her greed to hurt me, and in the end, her stupidity destroyed you. Karma's a bitch. You believe that now. That afternoon, Declan showed me the official notice from group headquarters. Sloan Whitmore was terminated for severe ethical violations and criminal conduct. the legal department handed her over to the authorities. Her psychology license was permanently revoked. She became the most despised figure in both the psych and rescue communities, and Marla and her thugs were formally charged. They'd be behind bars for a long time. The storm that had been crushing me for 5 months finally broke. 1 week later, I was invited to the rescue group's family day and demonstration exercise at the training and demonstration field. I sat in the VIP seats, sunlight pouring over the huge helipad and obstacle course. Declan stood at the front of his team in a crisp black uniform, his back straight. He was still a little thin, but the sharp, lethal edge of a special ops captain was back. After the demonstration, it was time for the quarterly family authorization renewal. In front of hundreds of team members, officers, and families, I watched Declan walk to the front, take the family privilege and emergency authorization form from a staffer, and pause. He didn't sign it right away. Instead, he turned around, and under all those curious, stunned eyes, walked straight toward me in the family section. He stopped in front of me. Then, in front of everyone, his ice/cold face cracked into something warm. Like spring, he bent down and pressed the form into my hands. The team started whooping. "Captain Hayes, who's this? Introducius." "Yeah, you've been hiding her." Declan straightened up and faced the crowd. His traumatic aphasia wasn't fully healed. He couldn't do long sentences. But he took a deep breath, gripped my hand with his big, rough one, and pointed at me with the other. I watched his throat work hard. And then, using every bit of strength he had, he forced out 5 words, loud and clear. "Sage Hayes, my wife." His voice was hoarse, but the pride and certainty in it were undeniable. Through the speakers, those 5 words rang across the entire training ground. For a second, silence. Then thunderous applause and cheers. Everyone who'd whispered about me because of Sloane's lies now looked at me with nothing but respect. "Whoa, Daddy is so freaking cool today." My baby's little voice bounced with excitement. "Mom, look. His ears are bright red. He's probably setting off fireworks in his head." I listened to my son's running commentary, felt the heat of Declan's palm, and the last wall inside me crumbled. My eyes stung, but I held back the tears. The applause faded. Declan didn't drop to his knees and beg for my forgiveness in front of everyone. He knew my pride. And he knew that 5 months of suffering couldn't be erased by a simple sorry. Let go of my hand, pulled out his phone, and typed something with intense focus. Then he turned the screen toward me, no long confessions. Just one line, controlled, humble, begging. "I lost you once. Let me win you back." I looked into his bloodshot eyes, hopeful and terrified like a giant puppy, bit my lip and swallowed the ache in my nose. I didn't nod. I didn't take the phone. I just lifted my chin, brushed a speck of dust off his shoulder, and let the corner of my mouth curve up. My voice was quiet but loud enough for him. "Nice try. I have high standards now." I paused, watching his face fall for just a second. Then I added slow, "Show me what you've got, Captain Hayes." Declan froze for one beat. Then joy hit him like a tidal wave. That man, who never flinched in rubble or fire, grinned like a silly kid who'd just been given candy, silent. Brilliant. After that public claiming at the training ground, Declan's campaign to win me back was both intense and hilariously clumsy. He filed for a transfer, giving up all frontline rescue missions to become a training instructor. Every day, like clockwork, he showed up at my new apartment door. He didn't bring me fancy roses. He brought me tactical-grade fruit containers, perfectly cut squares of fruit, all his own work. He didn't know how to sweet talk, so he quietly got certified as a newborn care specialist, a lactation consultant, and an infant CPR instructor. He taped all those certificates to my fridge in a neat row. To be able to speak in long sentences again, he practiced speech therapy in front of the mirror every night, often until his throat bled. Daddy's recent performance barely scrapes a passing grade. My baby's voice was as sassy as ever. "Mom, last night he was reading a parenting book and crying into your old photo. Can we, shorten his probation a little?" I rubbed my growing belly and watched through the window as that tall figure circled my apartment complex in the hot sun, checking every fire hazard and security risk. My lips twitched upward. Truth was, I'd forgiven him long ago. I was just greedy. I loved the way he looked at me now, like I waste for a thing. 2 months later, my due date came. The room was warm with yellow light. I curled up on the sofa when a heavy, low pain settled in my belly. Then my pants felt damp. My water broke. The same second I stopped breathing, Declan, apron still on, doing dishes, froze, like he'd sensed it. He dropped the bowl in the sink and walked to me fast. His face, calm a moment ago, went pale, but his eyes were steady. Safe. He knelt down, helped me into non-slip shoes, grabbed the hospital bag he'd packed weeks ago, and lifted me as if I were made of glass. His arms were solid and warm, blocking out the world. Rain rumbled outside. He carried me down the steps, into the car, and started driving fast but so smooth, barely a jostle. "Don't be scared, Mom. Daddy's the best." My baby cheered in my head. He drives so steady. "We'll see the doctor in no time." At the hospital, Declan carried me straight into the delivery room. His jaw was tight, but he never let go of my hand. The man who never showed fear in danger zones now had sweaty palms and was barely breathing. Inside the delivery room, the pain crashed over me in waves. I was drenched in sweat, gripping his hand. Declan knelt by the bed, using a cold cotton swab to wet my dry lips. His eyes were red. Tears fell onto my hand one by one. All those months of speech practice, of fighting to heal, they meant something now. He wasn't mute anymore. His voice was hoarse but soft, wrapping around me. "Sage, don't be afraid, I'm here." "Sorry you suffered so much. I love you, Sage." His voice was a warm current, holding me together when I felt like falling apart. "Mom, I'm coming. I'll protect you both from now on." Its little voice gave one last happy shout. Wah! A sharp, strong cry cut through the room. It's a boy, 7 pounds 2 ounces, perfectly healthy. The doctor placed a tiny bundle in front of us. A red, scrunched-up little face, crying his lungs out in that moment. The little voice that had been with me for so long faded. And the real baby was here in our arms. Declan looked at the baby, then at me, exhausted, spent. The man who never cried finally broke. He buried his face by the bed and sobbed, soft and hot like a child who'd been given back everything he'd lost. I reached up and brushed the hair off his forehead. I cupped his face and said, my voice soft but clear, "Congratulations, Captain Hayes, you're off probation." He jerked, looking at me through blurry tears. His eyes shone like they held starlight. Then he lowered his head and pressed a kiss to my damp forehead, the tip of my nose, my lips. Gentle, precious. The rain outside had stopped. The first light of dawn broke through the clouds and filled the room with a gentle glow. All the regrets of the past life, all the pain of this one, they dissolved in that cry, softened into a long, gentle future. From now on, year after year, he would hold me, hold our child, and fill all the missing tenderness, one day at a time. This is Listening Novel. We appreciate you spending your time with us. If you enjoyed today's story, please like and subscribe for more stories, and stay tuned for what's next.